oh, I wanted to go to the mission field when I was young or something like that. And I'll say, oh, well, did you go? Well, no. And then they tell me some reasons why they didn't go. And I always feel sorry because no one has more excuses not to go to the mission field than me. And I'm not bragging, it's just a fact. I've had 4 hip replacements, I've had a knee replacement. A couple of years ago I had over a dozen tropical illnesses. But the thing is, the mission field is a calling. And if you learn nothing else from what I say, just remember, what you do in life is between you and God, and it should be a calling, whether in my case, God called me to the mission field. So come H-E-L-L or high water, that's where I've been called. And Pastor Huck was called to be a preacher, and so on and so forth. My daughter was called to be a high school math teacher. My sons were called to the military, and so on and so forth. So you have a calling. Just be faithful to your calling, and God will make a way where there is no way. And don't tell me your excuses. Just do it. So meanwhile, I want to say, Brian, is it? Brian, I'm really sorry. I've seen those pictures of your home, being devastated and washed out. And I know some people that can really relate to you. And those are the refugees that you're going to see in the PowerPoint. We work with, among other things, as Pastor Huck said, we're in this year 5 countries. Sometimes we're in 7. The places that are like a country unto them own are the refugee camps. And we are a number of refugee camps in the 5 countries. And they are people without homes. Thank you very much for all of your prayers and your support. So with that, we'll carry on. Next. Oh, who's that? I love this picture. I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. Next. Oh, yes, there we go. Okay, you'll see this out in the hallway. Next. There's my family, there's my kids, and a couple of aunts and uncles. This was my granddaughter's graduation from high school. Next. And at the airport is, you see, I take hundreds of pounds of supplies in the Army duffel bags. I found they work very well because when they're empty, I can roll them up and put them back in the 2 suitcases that I do take and bring back and recycle them again. Next. So we start with Kenya. I know the men always love maps. And myself, I'm not such a good map person, but I put the maps up always for the guys. Next. Downtown Nairobi. Now, I know you think of Africa as being animals, right? Well, the animals are there, but you'd be so surprised to know the animals are in game parks. There's no fences, and the game parks are hundreds of square miles. They're not in zoos, but of course they're regulated and so forth. So, but there are big buildings too, like in downtown Phoenix. Next. And Joseph met me at the airport when I landed, and that would be in Nairobi, of course. And he is a friend of the missions. He's also a pastor. Next. So my old place where I used to stay a lot, Mayfield Guest House, sadly, during COVID, they went out of business. We were so brokenhearted because missionaries from all over the world have stayed at Mayfield Guest House for decades. So there's another wonderful place. It's called Floor Hostel. It is Catholic run, and the hostel girls stay in those buildings. These are girl students. Next. Here's another view. So there's another part of the hostel, very charming. And the thing next, thing I also to consider in Nairobi is that it's very secure. And unfortunately, Nairobi is a place where you have to think about things like that. There's the gate guard. Next. And we have a wonderful cook who, when I left to come home, he was the one that took me to the airport. So he has several jobs. And he hand-served us. Used to be you could help yourself. No, he puts the food on the plate, and very nourishing meals, I might add. Next. No, meet our new African director. That's Gideon and his lovely family, Rachel, and their 4 lovely girls. This is a new addition since I was here last. And Gideon lives on the field 24/7, and he's getting familiar with the mission work. And, when there's a crisis or something, he can handle it ASAP because he's there on the job. Next. So we're going from, we're driving now to Josek's home. Next. And the roadside stands. This is what you get when you leave Nairobi. You start seeing, let's say, the country, as it were. And there's just hundreds of little roadside stands trying to make a living selling potatoes, onions, you have it. Next. There we are with Josek's wife and my taxi driver. And he did a good job getting me to Josek's town. It's called Luanda, by the way, the name of the town in Kenya where he lives. Next. And it's a day's drive. So Sunday service, I was honored to speak. Next. And I was impressed because at the end of the service, people brought up food to give to the poor. I thought, wow, I'm a missionary in a country that's also doing mission work. Isn't that great? Next. So after the service, Josek, who is standing behind, and his wife, Catherine, is next to me, and the pastor and his wife. Next. Now, Catherine loves chickens, and so their house had a little chicken, little chicken farm on it, maybe, and she raised them, and she introduced me to the world of chickens. Of course, I have farmers on my mother's side, so I'm quite familiar. Next, these are the babies, and then the chickens kind of go in stages. They pass along, and then she sells them, to the community, and it helps support the family. Next. So we're on our way to Kakamega. Boy, that's a mouthful. This is a town where we have ministry, and we're on our way to a conference, and Josek is driving. Next. There it is. This is where the conference is. It's called Capacity and Training Institute. And it is actually Christian motivated. It is directed by Pastor Bernard, who you'll meet in a minute, a pastor who's over a dozen churches in the community that he founded. Next. Now, when Josek and I arrived, we went to the dining hall. Now, let me tell you the story. I had down there, chair story. That's to remind me. So you see the chairs and the tables. Don't take them for granted. Pastor Bernard sold his family car, and he has a bunch of kids, in order to buy the tables and chairs for this conference. Otherwise, the pastors coming from all over Kenya would not have any place to sit. I thought, boy, that's sacrifice, eh? Sell the family car and to buy chairs for a conference? Really? I haven't heard of any pastor here doing that. Next. Oh, can you go back one? Oh, thank you. The guy on the left, of all the times I've been in Africa, we've never been in the same place at the same time. This is Pastor Bob Bartlett. He is the founder and pastor, of course he retired last year, of Living Water of the Valley Church, and he's the chairman of our board of directors for Bush Telegraph Mission. And we kind of coordinated our schedules, and there he is at the conference. How about that? So that's Pastor Bob. You're meeting for the first time ever. And we arrived at an odd time, and they fed us an omelet, a delicious omelet. Next. So who are the cooks at the training center that do this? Well, you'll be very surprised to know. Next. Oh, and this is another favorite in Kenya and much of Africa. It's called matoke. Have you heard of it? Anybody? Matoke? It's made from green bananas, which personally I found disgusting when I first had it. but I've learned to like it. I used to tell my children when we were growing up, because there were 5 of them, and they'd turn up their nose at something, and they were not allowed to say, I don't like such and such. And I would say to them, you will learn to like it. And they did. So they were always welcome. And I know, I'm an old-fashioned mother, okay? So they were always welcome in their friends' homes, because the mothers in those homes, they knew my children would never say, I don't like that. And they taste it. At the very worst, they might say, no thank you. Maybe. Okay, next. So here is the secret to that food you saw. And they have a kitchen at the center, and they train young men and young women in a career of, what do you call it? What?
Culinary arts.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. You should be up here, Pastor. Culinary arts. And they are in school. This is a school, but they're Christian motivated. And they learn this, and it will help them to support themselves. Next. Here's the men's conference. We had over 80 men coming from all over Kenya. And of course, Pastor Bob was part of that conference, and then I spoke as well. Next. There's Pastor Bob. Next. Now, Pastor Bernard on the left, he is the director of the school, and he's taking us around and showing us. Now, this is the dormitory where the men that are in the conference are staying. Next. I was hosted, and Gideon was with me, by the way. You'll see more pictures of him. We were hosted by Pastor Bernard in his home, in his own house. And they had to kick, I shouldn't say this, they had to kick one of the children out of the room so I could sleep there. But this is typical in Africa. They will do anything. And the children were sleeping on the floor of the church next door. I know, that's just the sacrifice that they make. So Nora is Pastor Bernard's wife, and her son, they're making breakfast. Next. And here's a typical breakfast. Next. What's this Pastor Bernard wears? I just couldn't get over. I mean, he's so serious. He never says a joke. He never laughs. And there he's wearing these pink socks with hearts. I don't know. Next. They have a lovely garden. Next. And chickens. Next. And they even have some goats. So he's got them all. And this is all to self-support his family. Next. Besides preaching. So here's his daughter, Annette. He has only 1 girl and 4 boys. And she's trying on the wedding dresses. Next. So let me tell you what this is about. Bush Telegraph has a project. We call it the Wedding Closet. And dresses are just spread by word of mouth. I didn't make it happen. And I was loaded up with wedding dresses when I went back this last time. And the idea is that, the woman leader in the church keeps the wedding dress for such a time. I'm sorry, I can't see all you guys over here. Keeps the wedding dress for a young girl to be married in the church. It's an incentive, as opposed to a tribal marriage, which really isn't, we wouldn't recognize, but it's a traditional marriage, just kind of pagan. But the reason they're not married in the church is because they're poor and they don't have the clothes and all that. So we provide the wedding dress, and we give it to the woman leader. We don't give it to the pastor because we don't know what he'll do with it. The men don't seem to understand this. Next. So after the conference, Pastor Bernard took Gideon and me to this disabled center. Now, the story about this center, it had past tense, run by the Kenyan government. However, they abandoned the project 2 years before. Actually, now it's been 3 years. And these people had nothing and no one, nowhere. So Pastor Bernard, with his big heart, took up the project. We're a part of it. We're not all of it, but Bush Telegraph does our part in helping with this project. So I'm there meeting these people. It took me a long time. I wrote down everyone's story by hand. I have it in my little books, which I carried with me, my little day, what do you call it, like diaries, or day timers or something, that I wrote down everybody's story, and it was just heartbreaking. This is an albino, by the way, and they are shunned by society, and they have a very hard time in life. Next. There they are. Didn't see one smile. They're all just very, very without. So we're getting this, since I've been there, Pastor Bernard and with his resources and us, we're getting this back up and operating again, this disabled center. Next. Now they're making lunch. It was lunchtime, and there are the cooking facilities. I have to look in your kitchen and see if you have something like that. No? No? Okay. I'm joking. Okay, next. They're having lunch outside. Next. And the government had bought them 2 chicken hatcheries. Do you recognize what that is? It's a chicken hatchery. And but they were both broken down when Pastor Bernard took the facility over. So they got one up and running, and this is the one that's working now. So this will help provide funds for the people. Next. And there, the baby chicks it's working. Next. So from there we go to what is called, I call it a bush church or rural church. And there are many in the area, and it's quite far. And there we are. There's Gideon. Gideon is the second from the right, and Pastor Bernard on the left, and the pastor and his wife. Next. Oh, sorry, it's kind of sideways. So I'm addressing the women in the church, and they all had stories. And yes, I wrote down all the stories. So I was there a long time. Okay, next. More women, and they all had heartbreaking. They have tremendously hard lives out in the rural areas. Next. And we're having lunch at Pastor's house. I'm sorry for the blurriness. And what you can't see is he lives in a mud house. The walls are made of mud. Next, you're going to see, this is, go back one. Sorry. Yeah, that's called ugali, which is the staple diet of much of Africa. It's made from ground cornmeal, and it's a part of every meal, and yes, we eat with our fingers. All right, following the men's conference was a women's conference that I was honored to be a part of. Next. Here are some of the women. Next. Now, about the women's conference, I'll just mention this quickly. You can't believe how much witchcraft is in the society. Now, if you went as a tourist or even as a missionary, perhaps you would not even be aware of it because they will not talk to you about it. It's something they don't think we understand. Well, I understand it, and I know what to look for, and I know the questions to ask. So it's something with the women after, at the end of the conference, I had some women come forward and share with me their stories of how their lives are involved in witchcraft. So it's just something that we need to be aware of, to pray about, too, when you're praying for these people. Now, Pastor Bernard also oversees an orphanage. It's about a day's drive out of town. Well, let's see, that's not true. It's about an hour and a half. And we couldn't get to it this time because there had been a violent storm and the road had washed out. But this is also a part of our ministry, okay? Next. And they have 75 orphans and 25 mamas that we help sponsor. Next. Well, we're on our way to Busia, Kenya. This will be our last stop in Kenya. Here we go. Next. And in this case, because the pastor here has a tiny little house and a whole bunch of orphans, so Gideon and I stayed at Green Green Bay. How about that? Green Bay Packers. Yeah. Woo. No, I shouldn't be Green Bay Packers, should I? My grandson is, because that's where he lives now in Wisconsin. So sorry. Yeah, Green Bay Guest House. We stayed there. Next. And Pastor Patrick is on the far left. He's so dark you can hardly, see him. But you see the green pants, I hope. And Prayer Center Church. Now you'll see a real miracle here. Next. So it's a small church, and because of COVID, and they had just come out, the country had just come out from under lockdown. So they had to meet outside because the church that they rent, you can't even call it a church. It's just a small room like 7 by 10, and they can't social distance in there. So we're meeting out under the tree. Next. Next. Oh yes, the praise team. Next. And I took the kids shopping for school supplies. This is Stephen. He's so happy to get this book for his schoolwork. Next. Pastor Patrick's wife and her little baby, Rosie. Next. And Gideon bought her a hoe and a rake, and you never saw any woman so happy in their lives to receive a hoe and a rake, because there's a little plot of land that she has been cultivating, and this will help her to do that and raise vegetables for the family. Next. A typical meal is beans, and I think that's ugali. Next. Now here are all the children. Now he has 7 orphans altogether, and then they have one biological child, little Rosie. Next. And the children just praying. There's little Rosie on the left there, playing with the neighbors. Next. Now, we started construction while I was there for Pastor Patrick's church. Now, this is a third world church, so if you're thinking of the Taj Mahal or something, forget it. So they're taking down all the trees and clearing the land. Next. Now, because of this, we're off to the hardware store. Now, I go with them. That's Gideon, the first one on the left, and we're overseeing getting all the nuts and bolts and screws and nails and all that. And the wood that they get is poles, round poles. Next. So here's the hardware store inside. And I said, where did you say that nail was? It's kind of... I know. So welcome to a hardware store in Busia. Welcome. Next. Now, part of the things we bought that day were these poles. So you load 16 tons. What do you get? Yeah, exactly. So it's on a, I don't know what you call that. Huh? It's kind of like a wagon. It's got wheels, but you have to push it. So they pushed it all the way from the hardware store to the site. Can you imagine? Next. I know. And there we are. Now you see the poles are going up. Next. The girls come in and they are breaking the soil. There, you have to break the soil. And there's the guy putting up the roof rafters. Next. And there it is, finished. Now, I wasn't there for the grand opening, inauguration, celebration. Next. But there it is. So let's celebrate. Next. And they had pastors visiting from all over Kenya. There were special guest speakers. It was really an exciting time. So there's the church. That's the inside of it. It's quite big, hey? Yeah, so he's very happy. Pastor Patrick is so happy. And that was Bush Telegraph. Next. All right, he's doing the opening for the church. Next. Now we're on to Uganda. Now Busia, Kenya, and Busia, Uganda are right on the border. So I didn't have far to go, so I went by Piki. Border. That's the bicycle. Next. There I am. Oh, no, that's the Piki. That's the motorbike, yeah. So I take whatever is available. to get around from A to B. Next. So we're in Busia, Uganda. Next. I meet Mama Josephine. Now here she is on the right. I saw the poster that Karen made, and that's Mama Josephine with her children. We love her so much, and she has the biggest heart in the world. Now it's not natural. I'm saying this truthfully. It's not natural for Africans to want to adopt a strange child. It is not normal. They don't seem to have that care. Now, these are not the Christians I'm talking about. I'm talking about just the general population. They don't have that same compassion as most Americans have. In or out of the church, most Americans care about orphans, no matter whose they are. So it's really unusual. She's a very unusual person to have this kind of compassion on her children are long gone and raised, and she's widowed and all that. So there she is with the kids. Next. And now I call them my three sons. These are three of her kids. Every night they walked me home. Now, of course, I couldn't stay in the house. There was no space. It's just wall-to-wall children. So I stayed at a guest house about a mile away or less, and the boys would walk me there every night, safely to the room. They just insisted. That's just the way they are. So, next. We had Pastor Gideon visited later. Now, what I didn't tell you is that when we got to the border to cross from Kenya into Uganda, he failed the COVID test. He tested positive. And we'd been together, I don't know, about a month, traveling, And so he was put in the hospital. And we visited him, we took him goodies, water and supplies like that. But I had to leave him behind, and it broke my heart. So I crossed over the border, and I was on my own for the rest of the journey. Then when he recovered, he had to go back home to his home in Nairobi. When he recovered and tested positive, which wasn't very soon, I think it took 4 to 6 weeks before he tested positive, and he had no symptoms, absolutely no symptoms. His wife and children never got sick, so we always thought it was a false positive. That's what I say, because there's no symptoms, his family never got sick, I never got sick, so we think it was a false. So he came when he tested positive, down to meet Mama Josephine, and of course I was gone then. Next. Now, Mama Josephine took in 19 new children, orphans. Here they are. Now, I have 2 pictures of them. So look at their faces in this picture. Study their faces carefully. You kind of see they're just kind of, what would you say, glum? They're not like, huh? They're not happy anyway. Okay, yeah, they're gloomy. Okay, next. Now look at their faces. Now this is one month later. 1 month in Mama Josephine's house. This shows what love does. And good food, of course. And a place to sleep at night. I'll tell you where these children come from in just a minute. Okay, next. Mama Josephine and me on the veranda. Next. And, okay, whenever Mama Charlotte comes to visit, they show me everything that's wrong. Why is that? I don't understand. So you see the septic tank on the top. Then, not septic tank, water tank, sorry. Now this. Kind of. So down below that empty space, that had another water tank. It was square and it cracked. And they couldn't use it, so that meant there's another addition to the house to the right that we built a couple years ago, and they couldn't get any water, they couldn't flush the toilet, which we put in, and they couldn't shower, nothing. So that's the first thing Mama Charlotte took care of. Next. So there's the old one. You can't see it in this picture, but there's a big crack that goes all the way down to the bottom. Next. So here's the new one. Next. And it's installed, and now this is the little bathroom we built specially for the big boys, because they were crowded out and they needed their own little dormitory, and there were 10 of them, big boys. So now they can use the sink, and they can use the shower and the toilet in there. Isn't that great? Next. Another thing that they said, oh, Mama Charlotte, the solar isn't working. And we put the solar in 2 years ago. Oh, okay. So what do we need? So anyway, Mama Charlotte fixed the solar, and there's a new one now. Next. Now that prevents them from having to use the town electricity. There's one light in the ceiling, and that's the only electricity they use. So now they have solar, which helps so much at night. Now, we bought them a cow about 2 years ago, but it wasn't ready for milking or anything. And now she's grown. We call her Elsie, and Elsie had a calf. So guess where Elsie the calf lives? Next. She lives on the front porch of the house. They don't want anyone to steal her. So the kids take care of little Elsie. She's on the front veranda of the house. She's eating, whatever they give her. And at night they take her through the house and into the backyard, which is like a little cubbyhole thing. It's just a tiny little courtyard. Next. All right, so I take the big kids shopping when I come, and they're getting their supplies for school, and otherwise they have no extra things. Next. And then I bring things in those duffel bags. These are little gifts that one of the mamas here in town made. These are just for the little kids. It's just a mini little bag of pencil, eraser, little tablet, things like that. And they're just so excited. These kids are in the, kindergarten. Next. And we brought shorts. You see the shorts there? It's got that loud pocket. So we have some ladies that love to sew, and they make these elastic shorts for the boys. Very simple pattern. Next. And there's also little girl dresses. We had what you call a craft day, and I bring crafts, and all kids, I had them coloring and doing all sorts of things. So guess what? They put all their pictures on the wall. There they are. Mama Josephine doesn't care. She thinks it's wonderful. So there's all the kids' pictures up there that they colored. It's so sweet. And they're very proud, and each one shows me their picture. Next. Now, Mama Josephine had some medical issues the last couple of years, and we took care of financially. By that, I mean they required hospitalization and different things. So she was diagnosed with diabetes. And so she had to change her whole diet. And every day, this is Blasio. He's the one that actually writes us. When he emails, he's the one that writes. And Blasio is checking Mama's glucose. What? Glucose. Yeah, he does that. Next. And so while I was there, you see, I have 3 boys in the military. So what happens when they come home, they turn our house into like a work zone or something. And all their friends come in, they start working too. It's just the military. So when I'm there, I get the kids working, all of that. They know that. So I said, okay, we're going to clean the house today. That's it. So then Jackson, the oldest one, I said, Jackson, you will organize. I don't say, will you? I say, you will, because otherwise it doesn't carry any weight. You will organize all the kids into 4 teams. They will pick the name of their own team, and then you will appoint each one a certain part of the house, and they will do it. Yes, Mommy Charlotte. Okay, so that's what they did. So they divided all the kids into 4 teams. Next. And they picked their own name, which they love. They're very competitive. There first out came out the desks. Next. And there they carried the buckets of water that they had to carry from another place. Next. And they're cleaning their front veranda. Next. And this guy, he just cracks me up. He's got this hat and the red pants. He's quite sophisticated. And he's cleaning the door. Next. And the girls in one of the rooms cleaning the windows, all the nooks and crannies. Next. And the bedrooms. You see the floor gets thoroughly. Next. And now, What are they doing? Now, this is the bathroom, the only secret place in the house that has a lock on the door. So the prize for the winning team, which Jackson chose, or we grown-ups chose, was a nice cake from the shop in town. So when the cake arrived, they quickly carried the cake into the bathroom and locked the door. So the kids are peeking through the keyhole to see what's happening to this cake. I know. Next. So there's the cake. They cut it up into a zillion pieces so everyone could have a piece. Isn't that sweet? Yeah, not just the winning team. So they're learning to share. So there's the cake. And they're in the bathroom doing this secret operation. Next. It was so funny. All right, it's mealtime. There's Mama Josephine getting the vegetable ready. I think it's called Kasumi Wiki. It's in the kale family, and it's kind of cheap, but it's also good for the kids. It's a good green vegetable. Next. And even the boys and the girls get in on that. Everyone gets in on preparing for the meal because there's 52 children or something. Next. And meet Sylvia. She is paid. We pay her by the month. And she is a full-time cook. Full-time. Full-time. So there's one of the boys with her. She's a real blessing. Next. All right, they're eating time. It's supper. Next. And Mama Christina. Now, what I didn't tell you, Mama Christine has 10 of what we call leftover orphans. For lack of a better word, Mama Josephine's house was packed, and there were 10 more came, and she couldn't turn them away. So I said, okay, Mama Josephine, you find a young mother who's a widow and who has the same heart as you and for children, and ask her if she would like to care for these children, and we'll help her. Well, she did. It's Mama Christine. There she is in the back in the blue shirt, and she has about 10 orphans, and that's the story of Mama Christine. Next. Now, when I went to her house, we had moved her from a one-room house. Imagine she has a little baby, and 12 people in one room. One room, 12 people. So we moved her into a house, a real house. So I went there the first time I've seen this house, and this is what I saw. There was just a bed. I don't know if you can see the bunk bed on the right. And then those two things down there, those are mattresses. And that's the only furniture in the whole house. Next. Then another part, everything is put in bags and tubs. There's no chest of drawers, no closets, nothing. Next. So we got busy with that, and we sent money, and she picked out this furniture. Next. And the table and chairs and the cushions is all set up. So now they have furniture in their house. Next. Now, where did the orphans come from? Well, I'll just tell you a couple places. The garbage dump. This is right, and it joins Busia, Uganda, Busia, Kenya. That's the same garbage dump. And I illegally crossed over one day with one of the pastors behind the scenes because I couldn't go through it's very complicated. Anyway, to do the visa thing, in and out, just for half an hour, I couldn't. So the pastor took me in behind the scenes, and I saw, for myself, I have to see with my own eyes, these are orphans, and they're looking in the dump for food to eat. And they get very sick, very, very sick. Next. Another place they come from is the stone quarries. Now, in Kampala, the capital, there are 5 stone quarries within view of the government offices. Now, there may be a rule on the books that children are not allowed to but nobody enforces it. So I was there in person, and I saw it with my own eyes. That's me testing the hammer, seeing what these kids do all day. They take these stones, and they break them with a little hammer. I have it in my hand. I don't know if you can see it. It's got the smallest ball on the end of it. It's not like an American hammer at all. And they break this rock all day, 14 hours, into crushed stones. Guess how much they're paid? $1. $1 a day for that kind of work. Little kids. Saw them 8 years old. I saw a boy 8 years old with muscles like Superman. I mean, it was really sad. Next. The children, and then we're going to leave Lucia and leave Mama Josephine. I see so much talent in them. One of the boys, Belacio, for example, does artwork, and this is one of his paintings. Isn't that amazing? And he's also a soccer star. Next. Then we have the oldest boy, Jackson, who I said organized the kids into the teams for playing games, and he graduated from vet school. So he is a vet. He lives at home and he works in the community. I think it's just wonderful to see these kids succeed. Next, and the last one I'll tell you about is Jackson Jr. There are two Jacksons. Jackson Jr., he's in the military and serves his country. I mean, just coming from the streets and the garbage dumps and the rock quarries breaks my heart, but look what God can do. Next. So, goodbye, kids. I'll miss you. They're taking me to the border, which has a lot of stories that we don't have time for. Next. We're on our way in the bus to Kampala, and look at what it says on the bus. Can you read it? Imagine that on the bus. Yeah, I kind of like it, don't you? Yeah. Next. So we're in Kampala. Next. Kampala is very difficult to drive on the roads. As you see, that is just something in the road. Next. I am staying as being hosted by Pastor Stephen. Now, Pastor Stephen, or Reverend Stephen, his daughter married a lawyer. So they live in a very nice house. So when the war broke out in South Sudan, which Huck knows all about that, Pastor Stephen, or Reverend Stephen, and his family were in Lear, South Sudan, and they had to leave the country. It was so sad. They were refugees, and they came and stayed with his daughter and her husband's house. This is the house. Next. Sunday service in the living room. Next. And then we were visiting a local church where I was introduced. I didn't speak. It was actually in a house church. Next. Just to give you an idea. Now, Mama Elizabeth and I are on our way to the refugee camps. We're traveling by the bus. Next. We stay for the night at, it's called At Once, I can't see, At Once Restaurant and Lounge. Oh, is that what it says? Oh, and yeah, anyway, I have to watch that clock that's just rushing by. All right, so next. And then the next day we enter the camp. They're very strict. See the roads? Next. Now this camp is called Alir, and this is the church. Now notice the roof. It's covered with like plastic sheets. All right, and it's a refugee in the refugee camp. Next. We'll go rather fast. Upon arrival, my feet were washed. Next. And Mama Elizabeth's feet were washed too. It's just a custom. I liked it. It's very nice. My feet were so dirty too. Next. And the choir, see what great, they take it so seriously at church service. The men all wear suits, even though they're dirt poor. And this is the choir, the youth choir, and they all look alike in their yellow shirts with crosses. Next. That's me with Reverend Stephen. Next. And the congregation. Next. And I gave away a wedding dress there too to the women's leader, and they were so happy. And I told you the story already about that. Next. Little girl dresses and little boy shorts. Next. And aprons. Next. And I can't see what I can't see what that is. Oh, this is the room where we stayed. Now, if you saw the houses in the camp, you know that this was quite a luxurious place. It's just a room, that's all. Nothing fancy, just a square room, but a cement floor, brick walls, so it's secure. And they're interested in keeping me safe in the camp because there are, in this particular camp in Alir, there are uprisings like every other night. So they were concerned about that. Next, so we're eating. There's a typical meal. Next. And here's how most of them live, like that. Yeah. Yeah, so they were sacrificing to put me in that nice cement room. Next. And we're leaving now, and this lady is blind, and they have a big sending off. Next. There they are, all come to see me off. Next. And now, since I was there, guess what? We put a new roof on the church, and that's the new roof. It's called, they call it iron sheet, so we'd say a corrugated metal. Next. And we're on our way to the next camp. Next. So the first stop in this camp, this is Kiryandongo camp, about a day's drive from the first one you saw. And I'm visiting a widow who I'm standing next to who had her house destroyed by floodwaters, and we built a new one. It's behind her. So that's her family. Some are her children, some are orphans, as usually is the case. Next. And their church, too, has the youth choir wears these yellow shirts because they're the same tribe, actually. They're all Nuer, N-U-E-R, the Nuer tribe. Next. And the older women wear this uniform for the choir. Next. And they took an offering in a sheet. I thought that was very interesting. Next. Wedding dress giving out. Next. And seeds for the garden distributed. Next. My hostess, the deaconess hostess that looked after me, she was so wonderful. Next. Getting water. And this was in the compound where I was staying at night. Next. They're waiting their turn. This is a nice way to dry clothes. No electric bill from the dryer. Next. And the children in the compound where I was sleeping at night. They just come from, I don't know where. They just appear. Next. Now we're on our way to the last camp, the last refugee camp. Next. Now, it's also a part of Kiryandongo. These are the signs in the refugee camp. It tells you different government organizations that are around. Next, and you're going to meet our own kids. Here's the village in the camp where they have how they earn their living. They have a little shop. Next. And here's our kids. Now, we have approximately 25 Sudanese orphans here that we support all the time. And there they are. They all came and met Mama Charlotte. Now, they're not all pictured somewhere in school, the older boys. Next. Now, I looked at the girls' quarters. I'm going to do a little tattletaling here because I was very unhappy about something. This was the girls' quarters. You see they have a mattress that is shared by 5 girls. And that's it. Go on, next. And there's their cooking facility. There's the charcoal on the right. That's where they cook their meals. Next. This is the boys' quarters. Next. And the boys have a place to hang their clothes. Next. And the boys had furniture. Next. In fact, they had 3 rooms. And they had beds, and they had nice cupboards. Next. And they had some place to put their things. These are the boys. Next. Oh, and they had a table and whatnot, and another bed going. Next. So this is another Rosie, and she is the caretaker who makes the food for the kids. Next. Now, so Pastor Sunlight on the right is our pastor from South Sudan, and he oversees the kids at Kiryandongo. So when I got back to America, I had a word with him through the email. I said, look, the girls live in horrible conditions compared to the boys. You have to do something about that. You need to either build another room or what. So, next, they got busy. next. And there they are plastering the wall inside, next. And there's the house. So the girls now have their own house, and they have beds and all the rest of it. But you see, we didn't know. That's why I go. I have to go and see what's going on, because these things are not communicated in the letters. And you wouldn't know to ask if you didn't know to ask, you see. So that's why I have to go in person and see all these things and oversee all our projects. Next. And the girls are so happy. They've got bunk beds. Next. And they're holding up new shoes there. Next. And there's a new charcoal. We send supplies every month, money for supplies. Next. And food. We're on our way again. Next. And on our way to Congo. How many minutes, Pastor Huck?
5 more minutes and leave time for questions.
Yes.
Go 5 and then we'll do questions.
Okay, we'll go 5 more minutes. All right. Okay, we probably won't get through all, and that's totally my fault because I have such a hard time deciding. No, I think, no, this is important. Well, it's important to me anyway. Maybe not to you. Okay, Congo, next. Now, remember I said Gideon wasn't with me, and there I am in the airport. Next. Now, I had to fly. I have to explain something here. Because of COVID, I usually travel by bus from Nairobi to Goma, Congo. It's 2 days, 2 nights by buses, 2 buses. But I couldn't because we usually go through Rwanda, but Rwanda was still what? Locked down. No, I could have gone through Rwanda, but I would have had to been in quarantine for 2 weeks at my expense in a hotel picked by the government. And we're talking hundreds of dollars. So that's why Charlotte this time had to fly into Goma, something I never do. And I had to fly through Addis Ababa on Ethiopian Airlines. It was the best deal, shall I say. And there's the airport in Addis Ababa. Now, some of these slides I didn't finish getting them, organized to be filling the whole page, so you have to forgive me. I ran out of time. Next. Now, entering Congo, there you at the border in Goma in the airport, you're hit with COVID, and they test your temperature everywhere you go. Next. There's a lot of insecurity, and so the streets are filled with soldiers. Next. There was a volcano erupted. I don't know how well you follow the Congo news. I don't expect very much. But a volcano erupted that's right there in Congo, in Goma, and the town was devastated, and many of our pygmies that live on the mountain where this erupted were actually killed. Next. So that the streets, the people were in a panic. They're running everywhere. They lost their homes. They have nowhere to go. The government doesn't have programs and stuff like that. Next. So the first church you're going to see, I think we may kind of rush through this. Yeah, this is the first place we're going to. Yes, next. This is a pygmy home. And since then, I'm just going to talk from here on because there won't be time to go through it. But basically, our mission, Bush Telegraph, has started supporting about 5 tribes of pygmies. And these people had no one to help them. Now, the largest of the tribes was Nyiryango tribe. And they were the largest tribe. And I was there in their village. I'm sorry there isn't time to show you all these pictures. And they said, oh, Mama Charlotte, we have no school. We have no clinic. We have no church. And our people are hungry. I said, which one would you like us to work on first? They said, the church. Okay. So, I'm making a long story short, aren't you glad? So, we built a church. It's a long, long story. And the church was dedicated on Easter Sunday. And they have hundreds of members already. It's a witness in the community. The government has commended them and so proud of this, and it's brought peace to the area. As I said, it's a long story, because traditionally the Pygmies are nomads and they travel around and they are always fighting with somebody about something. Well, it's brought peace. And they're so happy. There's baptisms, there's teaching, and our partner there, Mama Zawadi and her team, are the ones that organize this whole thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. And so since then, you know, the volcano I mentioned. So the church was dedicated on Easter Sunday. Then the volcano came like in May. And guess what? It was a haven for homeless people who lost their homes. And they had over 100 families living inside the church. Now, we just finished a mega feeding program amongst all the people that were affected by the volcano. And we're talking hundreds. And we helped in so many ways. So we just finished a mega feeding program for them. We also finished a mega feeding program in South Sudan, Pastor Huck, in an area called Lir. During the war, during the 5-year war, it was burnt down twice. And then last year, they had what they call the 100-year flood. 100-year flood. So the people, the newer people there, by the hundreds, lost everything. So we had this feeding program, and we're still busy there with that. It's kind of an ongoing thing. So those are some of the things I wanted to share with you. And are there any questions? Yes?
Do you have a YouTube channel or social media where we could listen to the story entirely, the details?
I'm not following you. What?
Do you have a YouTube channel that you made through your story?
No? No, a YouTube channel?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
So we would have to hear it in person? Oh, okay.
I think I hear Pastor Gideon said he found me answering questions on YouTube. I have no idea where that was.
That would be wonderful. It's a great idea.
So I think that's a good idea, and we're going to pursue it. One thing you have to know too, since the early this year, we've been working on a container to Congo. We finished the container a couple weeks ago. Now, container is pretty darn big. It's 40 feet, all right? And this is the COVID time, so my old team that used to volunteer was down by 75%. Due to COVID and other related issues, people just weren't up to volunteering to help sort through thousands of pounds of donations that take hundreds of hours. Hey, I don't blame them. Anyway, God sent people, and this is true testimony from my own lips, from the highways and the byways of life that I didn't know. And they came and they helped and they got the job done. Now, this Tuesday, this is Sunday. So in 2 days, I know, I have to remind myself because the days are just going so fast. On Tuesday, our shipping container arrives at the Living Water of the Valley Church, and we will be shipping these donations. They're all ready to go. So that happens on Tuesday. The shipping container arrives at 9 a.m. We have 2 hours to pack. So I have what I call the guide team. And they're all organized. Some of them are coming as early as 7 to what we call stage the pallets. And a 40-foot container holds 20 pallets. And then there's room on the top. We call that loose pallet. And this is an HC container, which means it's a high one. It has an extra foot at the top, which will be cram-packed. So, and we had to buy, our mission bought it. And the container costs have quadrupled in 2 years, thanks to COVID. I know, it's a dominoes effect, hey, how things work. It's quadrupled.
Now you have to buy those containers?
We buy the
And
container.
a container, just for their visual, is probably somewhat like that trailer out there, the size of 40 foot long.
Yeah, that's
And there
right.
you go.
Yeah, but it has to be ocean going. It has to have a certification, all that stuff. Yeah, that's right, Huck. And so God gave us the donations. It's all paid for, so you can relax. The other thing you need to know is that we have a new partner in Germany and and also in Canada, and they are financing the rest of it. That's never happened. That's another God thing.
Well, I'll tell you what, we can attest that where God guides, God does provide.
He does. I mean, I've seen Mary. I can't take any credit for anything I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I mean, God just opens a door, I walk through it. That's all I do.
One of the things that I've noticed is you didn't say the word persecution, and I just wondered how much opposition. Are you getting any?
Oh, yes. We indirectly we deal with persecution in a different form. You see, there's so many dangers, say in Goma, you go 3 miles out of town and you put your life in your hands because there are so many rebel groups.
Oh, yeah.
It's a different kind of, not for the faith as much as just bad people out there. And then we do have the Muslim element in South Sudan, and in some parts of Uganda, the Muslim element, which you will, if you follow that news, you'll see, oh, a pastor was killed because he was testifying about the Lord. You know, I mean, he did nothing wrong by a Muslim group. Usually not the jihad, what is it? The El Shabaab group or some, you know, there's different groups. And even in Kenya, there's dangers, and Uganda, and South Sudan, and Congo, but the Congo one's a little different. But there's lots of dangers there. I've been surrounded by rebel soldiers before, actually, with cars. Yeah, there are a lot of stories.
Yeah.
So God just miraculously helps lead, guide, and direct every step of the way. So I'm really thankful for it. But do be praying Tuesday, 9 o'clock, as we load up and send her on her way, that it will have clear passage and everything else.
I asked her if we could assist, but the tank was already loaded. So it's full. And does anybody else have any other questions? Anybody
questions?
out there got something for her? Pastora wants all 19 orphans. Go ahead,
Yes.
sir.
How many years have you been doing this?
Oh my gosh. My husband and I went to Zambia in the mid-60s. We had two babies and one on the way. The one was born in Cape Town on the way to Zambia. So we had 3 babies in diapers, arrived, lived 70 miles west of Lusaka in the bush, in the back of a pickup truck and an airplane hangar. That was in about the mid-60s. So, yeah.
Anybody else got any questions for Charlotte?
The container used to be $10,000 to send to Africa.
Oh, and maybe in the old days. But like even buying a used one is now $10,000. It used to be $2,500 2 years ago. Now our shipping agent, it's a really a very nice shipping agent. He's a Christian, and he found one for us. It's only $8,000, and it's all paid for. It's all paid for, so that's the one. We want them to keep it because they don't have secure places to store stuff. You know, the kind of houses they built, the pygmies, you can kick down with your foot. I mean, they're just not very strong. I saw another hand. Did I? Yes?
Me?
Yeah.
Where can we give to your mission?
Oh. Well, if you got the flyer, did you get the flyer? Okay, at the very, very bottom, there is the mission address.
Okay.
Yeah, the mission. It's at the very, very, very bottom.
Okay, thank you.
So I thought you'd enjoy the pictures more than a lot of writing, you know, so I put the pictures. Yes?
Do most of the people speak English?
Oh, that's a good question. They do learn English in schools if they're fortunate enough to go to school, but you have to understand only 25% of the children are able to get an education, and then it's usually maybe up to the 5th grade. So yes, most of them have a working knowledge of English. Now in Congo, it's not so. They don't teach English in the school. They speak French and a bunch of other languages. Now, Gideon, our African director, he speaks like, I don't know, half a dozen languages, so he's pretty safe wherever he goes. But in Congo, they only start teaching English in high school, and then it's an elective. In other words, a kid has to choose to take English. And why would they take English? Because they don't speak it at home, so it's kind of a lose-lose. In Congo, it's very hard to get translators and so forth. I'm lucky, I have good ones, but it's not a lot of English in Congo for that reason. Yeah.
It's an English that you'd probably have difficulty understanding.
Yeah.
I can't even imitate it, but they've heard it because they've seen the soldiers of South Sudan.
But even when they speak English, the problem is sometimes I can't even understand because they have such a heavy accent. Even our shipper is a Frenchman, and he's talking to me in English, and I catch maybe every fourth word. He has such a strong accent, and I just kind of go along to, okay, oh, really?
It's like, it would be like listening to Lieutenant Lino saying, we gotta be thanking you because, thank you for sending a pasaha because it's very, very important to us. And it goes on and on like this, and it's like, okay, yep, I got you. And,
I do have one tip. If they ever go to Africa and they're in a church service and they're singing in their language, I have a tip for you. You don't want to stand there not singing, okay? Because that makes you look what?
You don't want to stand.
You don't want to stand there and not be moving your mouth. If they're singing in their natural, you don't want to just stand there like that because that makes you look kind of a bad sport, as an American visiting. Here's what you do. You didn't learn this at Bible college, and I am a graduate, by the way. I'm singing the words to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Or row, row, row your boat. And they can't tell the difference. My mouth is moving, and I'm following, I'm looking at somebody who's singing right, and I'm just, smiling, and I don't know. I hope God forgives me. But I don't want to stand there not singing, but I don't know the song. Okay, so, yeah.
Is it pretty much across the board, life expectancy is about 50 years old, maybe?
You're probably right. And in the bush, it's much lower because they will die of simple things like malaria. Who should die of malaria? They have all kinds of treatments out there. But the problem with many of the rural or bush Africans, they have some cultural beliefs that prevent them from doing the right thing. One is they wait. When a child is at death's door, they're waiting. And I'll say, why are you waiting? What are you waiting for? And they'll say, well, we're waiting to see if the child gets better. And I say, because they don't want, they say, if we take him to the hospital, he'll die. Okay, that's the logic, Well, you take him as soon as he gets sick, and then he won't die. Trying to teach this to them. So that lowers the expectancy. Everywhere I go, I hear African pastors, they lost this child and that child, and it wasn't even necessary because of these stupid decisions they make concerning their health. So I guess the bottom line is education. They need education. We do have some clinics, which I didn't even get into, but they need, or we partner, I should say that. We also partner with clinics in Congo for our women. You didn't see it, but we have a group of unwed mothers and raped women that we help and support. And there's so many stories I could share with you about that. And we support them. And we bought an acre of property for 100 orphans in Goma, Congo that have no home. They're homeless. They're just what you call living on a sharecropper's farm. And a lot of all these people, these women have been raped, or they are what we call unwed mothers or something like that. And so we're building, right now as I'm sitting here, we're building on this acre property, one by one, to give these children and these mamas a home.
So I'll tell you what, why don't we, we'll close this part,
Sure.
but then you'd be willing to answer questions.
No
and
problem.
all that, and then you'll be in your, at your table.
I'll be at the table.
And so for right now, why don't we do this? We got food, and of course, we can't lie. We did have ice cream. We do have ice cream. So we got all that. So I'll tell you what, why don't we stand right now, and we'll just pray over food, and then we'll get you back to your booths so you can ask questions there. But there again, thank you for coming, because it's just enlightening to know that where people might complain about things over here, you get to see some of the conditions that people live in over there, and it's a vast difference. So Father, in the name of Jesus, thank you for bringing Charlotte our way again, and thank you so much, Lord, for your example of work and what you can do through a vessel that will say, here I am, God, you do with me whatever you want to do. And so we also prayed, Lord, for us that in these last days that we would not put off saying, what do you want from me, Lord? And simply go with whatever God has for us, as time is running out and freedom is getting on short supply very quickly. And so, God, shine your light through all of us and bless our food, Lord. We're grateful that we have food, and we ask you to purify that food, and that we would be able to enjoy fellowship with one another and in the joy of Jesus Christ. So we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
God bless you as you hang out.